I've heard about the story of Lazarus a lot. Like a little too big. Wait, didn't you just do this? No, you didn't. Like a lot of it.
All right. So, as you can see, I want to talk about the story of Lazarus. You can find the full story in John chapter 11. I'm just going to skip a few parts to try to get through it. And I'm going to read through it real first, and then kind of point some things out. Now, a man named Lazarus was sick. He was from Bethany, the village of Mary and her sister Martha. This Mary, whose brother Lazarus now lay sick, was the same one who poured perfume on the Lord and wiped his feet with her hair. So the sister sent word to Jesus, "Lord, the one you love is sick." When he heard this, Jesus said, "This sickness will not end in death. No, it is for God's glory, so that God's Son may be glorified through it." Now Jesus loved Martha and her sister and Lazarus. So when he heard that Lazarus was sick, he stayed where he was 2 more days. And then he said to his disciples, "Let us go back to Judea." On his arrival, Jesus found that Lazarus had already been in the tomb for 2 days. Now Bethany was less than 2 miles from Jerusalem, and many Jews had come to Martha and Mary to comfort them in the loss of their brother. When Martha heard that Jesus was coming, she went out to meet him, but Mary stayed at home. "Lord," Martha said to Jesus, "if you had been here, my brother would not have died. But I know that even now God will give you whatever you ask." Jesus said to her, "Your brother will rise again." Martha answered, "I know he will rise again in the resurrection at the last day." Jesus said to her, "I am the resurrection and the life. The one who believes in me will live, even though they die, and whoever lives by believing in me will never die. Do you believe this?" "Yes, Lord," she replied. "I believe that you are the Messiah, the Son of God, who is to come into the world." After she said this, she went back and called her sister Mary aside. "The teacher is here," she said, "and is asking for you." When Mary heard this, she got up quickly and went to him. Now Jesus had not yet entered the village, but was still at the place where Martha had met him. When the Jews who had been with Mary in the house, comforting her, noticed how quickly she got up and went out, they followed her, supposing she was going to the tomb to mourn there. When Mary reached the place where Jesus was and saw him, she fell at his feet and said, "Lord, if you had been here, my brother would not have died." When Jesus saw her weeping, and the Jews who had come along with her also weeping, he was deeply moved in spirit and troubled. "Where have you laid him?" he asked. "Come and see, Lord," they replied. Jesus wept. Then the Jews said, "See how he loved him?" Some of them said, "Could not he who opened the eyes of the blind man have kept this man from dying?" So before I go any further, I should pray real quick. Lord, I just ask that you would open up our hearts and our eyes, Lord, give us the eyes to see and the ears to hear your word, Lord, and to respond to your spirit, Lord, wherever it leads us tonight. I just ask that you would be with me and help me get this message out that you've put on my heart, Lord. And in Jesus' name, amen. All right. So, I'm nervous, if you haven't noticed. And also, I'm going to be speaking about something that, like Mabel said, that's pretty hard for me sometimes to talk about, but other times it's not. So I don't know if I'm going to sound like really casual talking about this or if I'm going to get choked up. So whatever my reaction is, just bear with me because this is something that several of us in this room are dealing with like right now. So it's not. I don't have that detachment yet, and some of us would have something that happened a long time ago. So, I don't know who didn't know, I know some of us did for sure, but one of my closest friends, Jake Baxter, died in August. Actually, I was with him, and there's some others in the room, Eric and Joe. Joe's not here, I don't think. Eric was there, and Sarah Del Favre was there, and Joe probably will show up later. We went to the waterfall in Rochester, and we were messing around and having a good time, but also being really stupid, which is oftentimes a lot of fun. But in this case, Jake went just a little further than the rest of us. And if you know Jake, you would have thought, he can shake it off, he'll be fine. And he wasn't, he slipped off or something. I didn't actually see that part. And then just a couple moments later, really, Sarah was screaming that he went under the water. And, he didn't come back up. And it's just one of those things. It's one of those times where, like the sister said to Jesus here in the story, basically, God had the power to make everything better. Could have made Jake okay. If Jake had floated to the shore just fine, or if he had gone further and then walked back, the day would have ended with me slapping him upside the head and yelling at him for a couple minutes and telling him what an idiot he was. And Eric and Joe probably telling him to relax, and Jake too. But I would have, and that would have been it. And the day would have gone on. He would have gone to his dentist appointment, come back, whatever. I'd have gone to work. But that's not what happened. And the truth is I see myself and a lot of my friends in this story, because there's several different elements that I want to point out. The first is God doesn't always respond the way we want him to. It said that Jesus loved Martha and her sister and Lazarus. And so when he heard that Lazarus was sick, he stayed where he was for 2 more days. What's up with that? Like, are you serious? It's like, I don't know why, God let this happen, or if that's even theologically the right thing to say. He just doesn't always act the way that we want him to. And I remember I was where we were at just before he went a little further. We were all in a really dangerous spot, kind of hanging out there. And I was terrified. I was like, I'm not going any further. And I had been telling him for 15 minutes we needed to stop. So at this point, when he decided to go further, I stopped trying to talk him out of it. And Sarah was like, Jake, you really can't go any further. And she looked terrified, and I was just like, I don't know how I looked. I know I was scared. But I wasn't, Jake was going to be fine, right? Like, Jake's always fine. And I prayed. I said, Lord, let him be okay. But he wasn't. So, he didn't make everything okay. And when I had to go back and tell Chrissy what happened, his wife, mother of his 3 kids, she looked at me with a big smile on her face, like she was sure I was joking. And she even said, she's like, you're joking, right? And I wasn't joking, and it obviously would have been an awful thing to say. I am joking, but I wanted to so bad. Like, I wanted to tell her that I was joking for even that, 2 seconds of comfort. But I couldn't. And one of the amazing things that we saw during this, and we see here in the story, is that the church serves to comfort us during tragedy and loss, during tough times. When Jesus arrived on the scene after 3 or 4 days, he had noticed that a lot of the Jews from Jerusalem and from the surrounding area came to Mary and Martha to comfort them during the loss of their brother. And, I can relate to this, as any of us that were there at the house that night can. There had to have been like 100 people at the house within 3 or 4 hours, at least. Certainly a lot more than that during the course of the day, and hundreds of people during the course of that first week. There was over 1,200 people at his funeral. And, there's lots of people like that. Like tonight, we were at Jared's house, several of us, and we got some text messages that said, pray for Molly's friend, Molly and Steve, their friend, because somebody was in the hospital. So we stopped and we prayed. And then we got another text from Ben Ladchuk about his sister, who was apparently just went into labor prematurely. And we stopped and we prayed for her. That's just, that's what the church does. And in the story, you can react like Martha or like Mary. And I can't judge anybody for acting like one or the other. Because I've definitely acted like Mary acted, where at different times in my life, where I've been like, I can't talk to you right now, Lord. But the Lord has a hold in my heart, so He always pulls me back. And in this story, we see that Martha went out to meet Jesus when she heard He was coming. She went out to meet Him on the road, and the first thing she said to Him was, "If you had been there, my brother would not have died." But then she went on to say, God can do whatever you ask. Like, you can do anything. And she declared that He is the Messiah, the Son of God. Her faith never wavered. And then you see a different reaction with Mary. Martha went to her sister, and to go back to her sister who was at the house and say to her that the teacher is there. But like most of us in this room, no matter how difficultly she was grieving, Mary ultimately had given her life to the Lord. And when her sister went back to her to remind her that God is waiting for you, she went to Him. It doesn't say get up and run, but that's kind of the language of the story. She went up quickly. She got up and quickly went to Him. Those that were with her were astounded by how fast she was moving, and just, they said they followed her because she thought she was going to grieve at the tomb, so maybe they thought she was crazy. She just, maybe, I don't know what they were thinking, but she just gets up and starts running out her house. So I would have gone after her and been like, what's going on? She's going to be all right. And instead she went to Jesus and she said, if you had been here, my brother would not have died. And it's okay. You can be like Martha, where you're crying out to the Lord, but you don't lose faith, I guess, if that's the right way to say it. Or you can be like Mary, where maybe it takes a little while, and we've all been there. We've all seen people like this. People that, we grew up with in church who have walked away, or people who just things happen in their life. It can be like anything. It can be whatever makes you like lose sight of the Lord, whatever hurts so much that you can't really describe it. It could be, one rejection after another, casting somebody out, or it could be, your boyfriend or girlfriend dumping you, or, failing a test. Really, some of those, it can be something that most of us would think trivial on the surface, but it's really it has to do with your heart. So, we all have people in our lives that hopefully will be like Mary. They'll help bring us back to the Lord. They'll comfort us during our hard times. They're like Martha, that will do that for us. And if it's been 6 months or 6 hours or 6 years or 16 years since the last time you talked to the Lord about whatever has been on your heart, or somebody who's holding that type of grudge against the Lord, or that type of that roadblock that's keeping them from talking to Him. doesn't matter what they say to him. They can accuse him, they can yell at him like Mary did. But ultimately, you need to start that dialogue with the Lord. Sometimes you have to take that step out your front door to go meet him. And then, that's where, God, I don't know, like he resolves things. I really don't know exactly how to say it, but if you meet God where he's at, and we always hear, well, God will meet you where you're at. That's totally true. But every once in a while, he's asking to take that one small step. And then, that's where he's going to be. So, but why does God allow these things to happen? And I really can't answer that, for each of us. I do know that in Romans 5 it says, not only so, but we also glory in our sufferings, because we know that suffering produces perseverance. Perseverance, character, and character, hope. And hope does not put us to shame, because God's love has been poured out into our hearts through the Holy Spirit, who has been given to us. In 2 Corinthians, it says that praise be to God and our Father, our Lord Jesus Christ, the Father of compassion and comfort of all comfort, who comforts us in all our troubles, so that we may comfort those in any trouble with the comfort we ourselves receive from God. And when my pastor showed me that, when we were talking, because I've been talking to him since Jake passed away a lot. He told me, I was like, I don't know why I'm doing such, handling this so well. I felt kind of bad or guilty about that a little bit. And he said to me, he's like, maybe you're just supposed to be there for other people. And that's just, I'm going to be there for other people. I was already trying to comfort my friends as they were trying to comfort me. And it's like when he told me that, though, my pastor, it was like, I don't really want to accept that. Not because I want to be there for somebody if they needed me, but because I could kind of see where God was going to shape me and how He was going to work in me. And I wasn't sure I wanted any part of it, because I don't want to, be there in this situation. I didn't want to comfort others in this situation. I wanted to comfort others. I just wanted it to happen to somebody else. It's a really hard thing to think about, comforting your closest friends and your family for the same loss that you're dealing with. And if we go back to that last slide, and at the end of that story, we know what happened to Lazarus. We know that Jesus raises Lazarus from the dead, and that he rejoins his sister, and that's obviously that's what we would have wanted to happen with Jake. I don't know how it would have happened, but that's what we wanted, and instead, that's not what happened. Just before he raised him from the dead, Jesus said to the sisters, "Did I not tell you that if you believe, you will see the glory of God?" So during their time of suffering, he said to them, he challenged them, "Did I not tell you that if you believe in me, you will see the glory of God?" And if you look into what that word means in that verse there, never used a concordance before today, Pastor, but it means that it means honor and praise and worship and dignity. So His glory causes us to honor Him and to praise Him and to worship Him and to dignify Him. I was telling Tom earlier today that he's laughing, I don't know why. I was telling Tom earlier today that on the day that everything happened, I can look back and I can say that nothing else really mattered. Like everything else, I wasn't concerned about how much money I had in the bank or when I was going to get to work or anything like that. Like my sole focus was on this situation. Even though my brain wasn't really functioning, right? But I just prayed over and over in my head. The peace of God which surpasses all understanding. If you pray to Him, Philippians 4, 6, and 7, you will have that peace. And I said to Him, I said, Lord, whatever happens, don't let me blame you for what happened, because if I do, as this happens so often in my life, I'll turn away from it. I can't. If I blame you, if you're the reason why this happened, I can't follow you. Like I can't have anything to do with you. So I just prayed those things, and I can honestly tell you that like nothing else mattered that day except glorifying the Lord, praising Him, staying true to Him, thinking about Him. So that's really all I have to share. If you guys want to break up into your small groups, we should have a couple minutes.